Did you know that in some of the largest cities in America, immigrants aren't exactly welcomed with open arms? In fact, in certain areas, locals outright despise the idea of new immigrants moving in. Shocking, right? While we often hear about America as the land of opportunity for newcomers, the reality in some cities tells a very different story. Immigrants face intense hostility and discrimination, not just from a few extremists, but from whole communities. But why? What is it about these cities that makes locals so hostile toward immigrants, even in a country that prides itself on diversity? In this video, we're pulling back the curtain on 10 American cities where anti-immigrant sentiment runs so deep, it's impossible to ignore. These aren't the cities you'd expect, places that should be welcoming because of their size or reputation. You'll be surprised by the names on this list, and you won't believe the shocking reasons behind the resentment. Is it about economic competition, fear of cultural change, or something darker lurking beneath the surface? Stick around, because we're diving into the complex stories of these cities. And by the end, you might look at immigration in America with a whole new perspective. Trust me, you won't want to miss this. Let's uncover the truth behind these cities' harsh attitudes toward immigrants. Number 10. Let's start with Buffalo, New York, one of the most surprising cities on this list. You might think, Buffalo? Isn't that where the famous wings come from? Well, yes, but there's a lot more going on beneath the surface. Once an industrial powerhouse, Buffalo's economy has been on a decline for decades, and when industries collapse, frustration often boils over. Here's where things get interesting. As the city faced economic hardship, it turned to immigrants, particularly from Eastern Europe, as a new workforce. You'd think they'd be welcomed with open arms, right? Unfortunately, not always. Buffalo, like many Rust Belt cities, has a long history of resentment toward immigrants. Locals see them as competition for already limited jobs, especially in manufacturing and construction sectors that are trying to hold on in a struggling economy. And as Eastern European immigrants began settling here in large numbers, the tension only grew. There's an undeniable undercurrent of xenophobia in some neighborhoods, with many locals feeling that their way of life is under threat. But it's not just about jobs. Cultural clashes have also fueled the divide. Many long-time residents fear the city is changing too fast, too soon. Buffalo, once predominantly white, is now home to a much more diverse population, and this shift has caused discomfort for some. It's a tough situation. Immigrants want to build a better life, but many locals see them as an inconvenience or even a threat. Buffalo's story is one of survival and adaptation, but the friction between its communities is still palpable today. Would it be different if the economy had flourished? Maybe. But for now, the divide remains real, and it's something we can't ignore. Next on our list, we move to a city with a completely different dynamic, but just as much tension. Number 9. Next up, let's move to Salt Lake City, Utah, a place you might not immediately associate with anti-immigrant sentiment, but the reality is far more complex. This city is often viewed as a beacon of conservatism and strong family values, with the influence of the Mormon Church deeply embedded in the local culture. So, when immigrants, especially from Latin America, started arriving in larger numbers, tensions began to rise. The rapid demographic changes have stirred up resistance from some longtime residents. In Salt Lake City, it's not just about economic competition, though that plays a role, but also about the clash of cultures. For many locals, the arrival of immigrant communities challenges their deeply rooted beliefs and values, leading to feelings of discomfort and even hostility. The city's shift from a predominantly white population to one that's much more diverse has created a sense of alienation for some people who feel like their identity is being threatened. What makes Salt Lake City's situation even more intense is the conservative political climate. Laws and policies around immigration have often been more restrictive here, and there's been a strong push to prevent immigrants from receiving public benefits or integrating fully into society. The fear of losing control over the community has led to growing resistance to immigration. and it's something that continues to shape local attitudes. Salt Lake City's story isn't just about economic challenges. It's about cultural change and the growing pains of a city that's trying to reconcile its past with its future. But is that future going to be inclusive, or will the divide only grow deeper? What do you think about Salt Lake City's situation? Have you experienced similar tensions in your own city? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more content on the complex realities of immigration across America. Number 8. Now, let's dive into the Big Apple, New York City. You might be thinking, wait, NYC is known for its immigrants. Isn't it a sanctuary for newcomers? And you'd be right. But, surprisingly, even New York isn't immune to anti-immigrant sentiments. New York City is a place where diverse cultures blend together, with immigrants from all over the world calling it home. It's the city where millions of people from different backgrounds have built their lives. But within this vibrant tapestry, there are deep divides. In some neighborhoods, the influx of new immigrants, especially from countries in Africa, Asia, and Latin America, has caused rising tensions. For many longtime residents, particularly those who have lived through waves of immigration over the years, the city is changing in ways they feel uncomfortable with. Economic pressures also play a role. As housing prices continue to soar and resources grow scarcer, resentment begins to brew. Immigrants, often seen as filling essential low-wage jobs, sometimes face backlash from locals who feel that they are competing for the same resources or benefits. The rise of nationalist rhetoric and the America First mentality has only intensified these tensions, even in a city that prides itself on being a melting pot. While many New Yorkers embrace the diversity, others feel increasingly alienated by it, fearing that their way of life is slipping away. The reality is that New York's immigrant experience is not just one of acceptance and opportunity. It's also marked by divisions, misunderstandings, and, in some areas, resentment. So, even in a city as iconic as New York, where you'd expect inclusion and unity, anti-immigrant sentiments are alive and well in pockets of the population. It's a reminder that no city is perfect when it comes to immigration. Number 7. Next on our list is Oklahoma City, a place that might not immediately come to mind when you think about immigration struggles. But the reality here is a lot more complex than you'd expect. Oklahoma City has undergone rapid growth in recent years, and while that's great for its economy, it's also created some serious challenges, especially when it comes to the city's relationship with immigrants. Over the past few decades, immigrants, particularly from Mexico, have flocked to Oklahoma City in search of better job opportunities. While their presence has been essential to the city's growth, the rise in immigrant populations has also sparked resistance in some corners of the city. One major reason for the backlash is the competition for jobs. As the local economy boomed, many longtime residents began to feel threatened by the influx of new workers, especially in industries like construction and agriculture. Local workers, already facing economic struggles, often see immigrants as the reason they can't find steady employment, even if the reality is more nuanced. This has led to tension and, in some cases, outright hostility. But it's not just about jobs. Oklahoma City's strong conservative culture has also played a significant role in fueling anti-immigrant sentiment. The city, much like the state, has seen the rise of laws and policies aimed at restricting immigration, like stricter identification laws and local measures targeting undocumented immigrants. For many locals, these measures are seen as a way to preserve their way of life and control who gets to be a part of their community. Oklahoma City's story is one of growing pains. The city's economy has transformed, but so has its demographic makeup. And that shift has created friction between new arrivals and those who feel like their city is changing too fast. While many immigrants are making Oklahoma City their home, the divide remains real, and it's one that's hard to ignore. Number 6. Now, let's move to Atlanta, Georgia, a city that's often seen as a progressive hub in the South, known for its diversity and booming economy. But despite its reputation, Atlanta has become ground zero for some of the most intense debates around immigration in the United States. In recent years, the immigrant population in Atlanta has exploded. With a large influx of people from Latin America and various African countries, the city's economy, particularly in the construction, agriculture, and service industries, heavily relies on immigrant labor. But this very growth has sparked a wave of resistance from some of the local population, especially in neighborhoods that have seen the most change. One key issue is the competition for jobs. Many locals, particularly in working-class areas, feel that immigrants are taking opportunities away from them, driving down wages and flooding the job market. While immigrants often fill jobs that many Americans don't want, the perception of job loss and economic pressure creates friction. There's also the added layer of fear that the city's culture is shifting too quickly. Some locals feel that the rapid growth of immigrant communities threatens their own identity and way of life. Politically, Georgia has become a hotbed for anti-immigrant policies. The state's controversial immigration laws, including HB 87, often referred to as Georgia's Arizona-style law, have only fueled the fire. The law, which aimed to crack down on illegal immigration, was widely seen as a direct attack on immigrant communities, and it only deepened the divide between locals and newcomers. Atlanta's story is one of a city caught in the middle, struggling to balance economic growth and diversity with deep-seated resistance to change. While it remains a city of opportunity for many, it's also a place where the growing immigrant presence is stirring up tensions that can't be ignored. Number 5. Next, let's head over to Nashville, Tennessee, a city known for its country music, Southern hospitality, and vibrant culture. However, beneath the surface, Nashville is grappling with a growing issue: the rising tension between the city's rapid growth and its resistance to immigration. Over the past 2 decades, Nashville has seen an influx of immigrants from Latin America, Africa, and the Middle East. The city's booming economy, especially in industries like construction, healthcare, and hospitality, has attracted many newcomers looking for better opportunities. On the surface, Nashville may seem like a city full of promise for immigrants, but the truth is, not everyone in the city is welcoming. One of the core issues is Nashville's shift from a predominantly white population to a much more diverse one. As new immigrant communities establish roots, longtime residents, many of whom are more conservative, are increasingly feeling that their way of life is being overshadowed. In some neighborhoods, there is a growing fear that the city is changing too quickly, too drastically. The resistance in Nashville is particularly evident when it comes to political and social issues surrounding immigration. The state of Tennessee has seen a rise in anti-immigrant rhetoric, with local leaders pushing for stricter laws and regulations to control immigration. These sentiments have trickled down to the city level, where there's a growing divide between those who advocate for immigrant rights and those who believe that too many newcomers are overwhelming the local infrastructure. The friction in Nashville is more than just about politics. It's about culture. Immigrants in Nashville are contributing to the local economy, but they are also challenging the city's long-established identity. The tension between growth and resistance is palpable, and it's something Nashville will have to navigate carefully as it continues to change. Number 4. Next, let's talk about Houston, Texas, a sprawling metropolis that has long been a beacon for immigrants, particularly from Mexico and Central America. Houston's booming economy, especially in energy, construction, and healthcare, has drawn newcomers seeking a better life. On paper, it sounds like the perfect place for immigrants to settle, but the reality is a bit more complicated. Despite being one of the most diverse cities in the U.S., Houston has witnessed growing resentment from certain segments of the population who feel that their city is changing too quickly. The city's rapid growth has created a complex dynamic where immigrant communities, often clustered in specific neighborhoods, are viewed with suspicion by some locals. For many longtime residents, the sheer number of immigrants, especially in working-class areas, feels overwhelming. The result: a tension-filled atmosphere where immigration is seen not just as an economic issue, but a cultural one. The key issue in Houston is the pressure on public services, housing, and jobs. As more immigrants settle in the city, the demand for affordable housing and jobs increases, and competition intensifies. While many immigrants take jobs that locals might not want, there is still a perception that they are taking opportunities from native-born workers. This has caused resentment in parts of the population, especially as economic disparities widen. Additionally, Houston has become a flashpoint for debates over immigration policy. In recent years, local politicians have grappled with how to address illegal immigration, and stricter laws, like those in neighboring states, have stirred tensions. For some, the rapid demographic shift feels like a challenge to the city's identity and values. Houston's story is a delicate balance between economic prosperity and cultural change. Immigrants have undeniably played a vital role in the city's growth, but not everyone is ready to embrace that growth in the way you might expect. Number 3. Now, let's move to Chicago, Illinois, a city known for its vibrant culture, deep history, and diverse population. But behind the scenes, Chicago is also home to some of the most intense anti-immigrant sentiments in the country. Despite being a city built by immigrants, the Windy City has seen waves of immigration for over a century, from European settlers in the early 1900s to a more recent influx of Latin American and Asian immigrants. Today, Chicago boasts one of the largest Latinx populations in the U.S., and immigrants contribute heavily to the city's economy. However, as immigration numbers continue to rise, tensions have also grown, particularly in working-class and minority communities. A major factor driving anti-immigrant sentiment in Chicago is the competition for limited resources, especially jobs and housing. Many longtime residents, particularly Black and Latino communities who have historically faced economic challenges, view immigrants as competition for the same low-wage jobs and affordable housing. This is particularly true in neighborhoods that have been hit hard by deindustrialization and economic decline. Immigrants are often blamed for taking jobs that locals desperately need, even though immigrants tend to fill labor gaps in sectors like construction, cleaning, and agriculture. Racial divides also play a significant role in fueling resentment. In Chicago, there's a long history of racial tensions between Black and Latinx communities, and these tensions are often compounded by the economic struggles faced by both groups. Some Black Chicagoans view the growing Latinx population as a threat to their political and economic standing, which can lead to heightened hostility toward immigrants. While Chicago is a city that has long prided itself on being a melting pot, its complex racial, economic, and political landscape makes it a city where the immigrant experience is often marred by division, resentment, and competition. Number 2. Next, let's head to Phoenix, Arizona, a city at the epicenter of America's immigration debate. Phoenix is a place where the conversation around immigration isn't just theoretical. It's personal, it's political, and, in some cases, it's hostile. The proximity of Phoenix to the U.S.-Mexico border has made it a flashpoint for immigration issues for decades. The city's economy relies heavily on immigrant labor, particularly from Mexico, with workers filling jobs in construction, agriculture, and hospitality. Yet, despite this reliance on immigrant labor, Phoenix has one of the most fiercely anti-immigrant climates in the country. The main driver of this hostility is the city's harsh immigration laws, most notably Arizona's SB 1070, often referred to as the Show Me Your Papers law. This law, passed in 2010, allowed law enforcement to demand proof of citizenship from anyone suspected of being an undocumented immigrant. Although parts of the law were later challenged in court, it symbolized a deep-rooted resentment toward immigrants, especially from Latin America. This sentiment is still felt in Phoenix, where laws targeting undocumented immigrants, such as restrictions on day laborers and public assistance, continue to fuel division. On top of the legal battles, economic strain is a major factor in Phoenix's anti-immigrant attitude. Like many cities struggling with rising housing costs and unemployment, Locals often see immigrants as competition for jobs and public resources. While immigrants are vital to the city's economy, some native-born residents view them as a burden on the system. Phoenix is a city caught between the need for immigrant labor and the political and social forces that stoke fear and resentment. The result is a tense, polarized environment where the debate over immigration feels as intense as the Arizona heat itself. Number 1. Finally, let's talk about Los Angeles, California, the city that epitomizes the idea of a melting pot. Known for its entertainment industry, diverse population, and world-famous landmarks, LA is often considered a symbol of the American dream. Yet, despite its reputation for embracing diversity, this city has its own complex and, at times, hostile relationship with immigration. Los Angeles is home to millions of immigrants, particularly from Latin America and Asia, and has one of the largest immigrant populations in the entire country. The city's economy thrives on immigrant labor, from agriculture to technology to construction. But the reality is that even in such a diverse city, locals in some neighborhoods harbor strong anti-immigrant sentiments, particularly toward undocumented immigrants. The roots of this animosity trace back to the 1990s, with the passage of California's Proposition 187, a measure that aimed to cut public services to undocumented immigrants. Although the proposition was eventually ruled unconstitutional, the anti-immigrant sentiment it stirred up lingers to this day. Over the years, LA's immigrant population has continued to grow, and so has the resistance from certain groups who feel threatened by the increasing number of newcomers. At the heart of the issue is competition. Competition for jobs, housing, and resources. As LA has become more densely populated and housing prices soar, many locals view immigrants, particularly those from Latin America, as taking jobs and driving up the cost of living. Some see them as an economic burden, despite the fact that immigrants are critical to keeping many sectors of the city's economy running. Los Angeles's immigrant experience is a paradox. It's a city that relies on immigrants for its success, but in certain corners, resentment and fear about cultural change and resource strain persist. In a city that prides itself on diversity, this tension remains a significant, often unspoken, issue. And there you have it. 10 American cities where anti-immigrant sentiment is alive and well, even in places you wouldn't expect. But what do you think? Do you agree with the cities on our list, or do you have your own examples to share? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. If you found this video eye-opening, check out our previous video for more deep dives into the complex world of immigration. And hey, we put a lot of work into making these videos, so please show us some love. Hit that subscribe button. It's just one click, but it means the world to us.